Now, starting off with what is autism? Autism is defined as autism spectrum disorder. It is a neurobiological difference that affects the brain development in terms of communication, as well as social interaction, and is often represented with restricted interests as well as repetitive behaviors. Also present are sensory issues.
Autism, it's a condition, it's a difference, but it's in the person.
The main thing I like people to get about any discussion about what autism is that every person on spectrum is different. How people present what autism is for them is going to change from person to person. And that's probably the most important thing to know about autism.
When I teach people about autism, my key concept is that our perspective is different. Everyone on the autism spectrum sees the world a little differently.
All people are different, and people with autism or special needs their minds work differently.
Autism is a lifelong developmental disorder. Oftentimes people can develop coping mechanisms, and sometimes some of the more difficult sensory impacts are reduced, but people who are autistic stay autistic. Autistic children become autistic adults. With regard to restricted interests under autism, there's a saying that a lot of people on spectrum have interests that are an inch wide and a mile deep. The other part of autism is repetitive behaviors, or what are called STIMs, self-stimulating behaviors. That's sort of the stereotypical flapping or rocking, and sometimes it can be a verbal noise that's being made. Generally speaking, those STIMs are helpful to people who are on spectrum. It's helping them process the environment and their surroundings. It may be helping to calm them down. It may also just be an expression of pure joy. The consensus is, unless the STIM is harmful to someone or themselves, such as head banging, you really don't want to stop it. Let that stimming occur. It's helping the person, it's enjoyable for them, and like I said, as long as it's not harmful to them or others, it's perfectly appropriate. People on the autism spectrum can process sensory input differently. They can either be highly attuned and they're getting far too much sensory input, so touch is unbearable, or noises that wouldn't bother other people are overwhelming. Also, people can be undersensitive to sensory input. People who are looking for sensory input are often called sensory seekers. 1 in 59 children is diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder by the age of 8. This is from the CDC. This, of course, does not get those people who are diagnosed after age 8. There is assumed to be a genetic link in autism that can run in families, but not always. 5 times more boys than girls are diagnosed. And oftentimes girls are more socially adept naturally, and oftentimes they are not diagnosed until social issues become more difficult. Autism frequently occurs with other diagnoses. I believe some 86% of people on the autism spectrum have a co-diagnosis, and over 50% have 4 or more co-diagnoses. How does autism present? One thing about autism spectrum disorder is that when people hear spectrum, they often think of a number line, that you're somewhere on this line and you're a little bit more or a little bit less autistic. And that's not really how it works. It's much more similar to the kaleidoscope that's on the slide. You can be anywhere within having differences in language, with motor skills, perception, executive functioning, and sensory impacts. And all of those can be impacted anywhere within that circle. That's why I go back to saying that everyone who's on the autism spectrum is going to present differently, because they're going to be somewhere within that kaleidoscope. For more information, please check out the ASO website at autismsocietyOregon.org.